What's up, everybody? Welcome to SR Lounge, where we're here to help you be a better photographer. And today, we have, again, Caroline Tran in the studio. It's actually the same day today, as if it were a different day. But in this episode, we are talking about differentiating yourself, specifically 3 tips on differentiating yourself and your brand from other photographers, which I think you do incredibly well. Check out her work. Her photography style is very distinct. Her branding, her website, everything is just a very tight package. And I thought you have a lot of insight to offer them on these areas. And by the way, if you missed the last video or any of the other previous videos in this series, be sure to check out the article. And if you want to see more of her work, inside of the article has her work, her links, website, everything.
Thank you.
Is that a good enough intro? She's fantastic. If you don't know by now, she's amazing. Okay.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
Of course.
But yeah, I think on the topic of just like creating a distinct look for yourself, I think everyone has a unique eye. Everyone has a unique perspective, and it's being able to find that voice and now being able to express that perspective, right? So I think my biggest advice, or my first advice, would just be like, shoot a lot so that you can start getting a feel for what your style and rhythm is and what your voice is, and then be really consistent with that.
Yeah.
Staying really true to what you like, how you see things, and letting that part shine so that anyone who comes to see your portfolio will know exactly what they're getting. You know, like, I think it's hard if people are like, are you a vintage or a modern photographer or an edgy photographer?
Yeah.
So when they look through your images, they should clearly know what they will get.
Yeah. So if you were to advise them, I know you said shoot a lot, but how did you kind of fall into your current style? Because you have like to me, it has a very kind of pastel, light and airy type look and feel to it, a very filmic quality, but it's not filmic in the sense that it looks old. It just looks like classy kind of film.
Timeless.
Yeah, timeless kind of film versus, like super blown out and like kind of light leaks and that kind of stuff. Like, there's so many different variants of film. And so how did you kind of fall and progress into this specific style?
When I first started, I definitely was guilty of trying everything I saw. So, like, oh, cool. Like they did a shoot with like strobes and like I did do that with an engagement session.
Really?
Yeah, with like the guy's BMW, and we had off-camera lighting, and it was so not me, but I was just starting out. They hired me, and obviously I didn't have a style yet, so I was just doing anything they wanted, which I loved. I'm glad I did, because it gave me the chance to explore. Yeah. So I tried doing those edgy things, and I tried doing the over-processed, stuff. And in the end, it's like after doing all of it, I kind of noticed what I let go of and what I was drawn to keep doing. I feel like for anyone who's just starting out, this is the perfect time to make mistakes. Shoot as much as you can, because the risks are so low. Yeah. As you start being more established, that's when there's more at risk now. Yeah. But when you're first starting out, like, shoot your friends, shoot your cousins, and there's very low risk at the time, and it's a good chance to just experiment and find out what you like. And eventually, when you're starting to put your portfolio together, I recommend really looking to see what speaks to you, and then making sure that it all looks consistent with each other.
Well, so what's interesting about what you said, at least one of the things that I heard right now, was that you tried everything, and that means that, because I meet a lot of photographers that say that, oh, I'm a natural light photographer, or oh, I'm this, or oh, I'm that, but they actually have not tried anything else. They haven't actually pushed the boundaries, and when you ask them, they eventually will admit that, oh, I don't strobe because I'm not comfortable with it. But it's great to see that you found your style by literally trying everything, and you're actually extremely technically proficient with not only digital but also film and strobing and doing everything, but you've kind of fallen into this niche which fits your personality and style.
Right.
So,
I don't know if I'd say I'm proficient, but I definitely tried it.
I'd say you're pretty proficient. Compared to me. Yes, I have these film cameras that were donated to me that I have no idea what to do with. I will learn from you, perhaps. I will learn. All right, so our first tip was our consistency in our look and our deliverable product. Now, what is your tip number 2 for differentiating?
Number 2, I would say, is really know who your audience is, right? So now that you have your look, this look that you like, so who is the audience? Who is this bride and groom?
Well, I think you said that was actually number 1 earlier.
Oh, okay.
We just mixed it up. Sorry. So, but you were saying that you should know who you're trying to deliver images to first.
Right. And where are you going to find these people? And so just being consistent with, like, so for example, if I know that my market is, 25 to 35 year old, for example, right? Then being really consistent with my message to them so that when they're speaking to you or when they're coming to your website, or it's not like, wait, like, I don't connect with any of this now because I don't know who she's talking to.
So how did you kind of do that when you were, we talked about how you've created goals for yourself in the last video and everything like that. Was that part of this, is figuring out your target audience for who you wanted to provide images to, and how did you kind of work into defining that?
I think for me, it was a little more organic. Like, I didn't actually sit down and figure out who my target audience was, but naturally my target audience was me.
Okay.
So it was my age group, people who like the same thing I did. But that's where I say it's so important to figure out who you are and your voice, you know? Because I think that because I was so transparent about who I am and what I like people who liked my work naturally were connecting with me as a person.
Yeah.
And so the clients that I was getting in through the doors, like, the connection was very natural.
That makes a lot of sense. And I noticed while you were talking that we still have our fan on. So you have this beautiful, like, high production, like, the hair's going while you're talking. It's fantastic. Okay. So consistency in your overall look, defining who your target audience is. And that's really interesting because, like, coming from a business background, that's actually one of the first things that you do when you put together a business plan. And it's something that I think a lot of us probably skip over, and ourselves included. We just started creating images that we thought were cool.
Right.
And then you eventually find out that, oh, there's these types of people that also think that's cool, and they're the ones that are hiring me.
And I think along the same line, it's like, where do you find these people? So whether it's Facebook, online, and because my target audience was with, like, my same demographics, it was natural. So it's the same people who I was interacting with on Facebook and their peers.
Yeah.
When I first started, Flickr was a really big deal. And so I think Flickr helped me a great deal of connecting me with people as well.
Yeah.
And so, like, right now, like, I'm trying to start up some new branches of work, and the target audience is not me anymore. And so that's where I'm forced to really challenge myself now. Like, where do I find these? Where do they hang out?
Yeah.
Are they on Facebook? And they may not be, right? So, I mean, I'm relating that to someone who may be, say, trying to get into, say, wedding photography or portrait photography, who may not be on Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or their target audience may not be naturally where they are. So it's like having to navigate a new thing, find out where they are, and try to tap into.
Totally, because I mean, if you're trying to be an editorial photographer or a fashion photographer, I don't think a lot of you have to define, okay, I need to get into, like, if you're going to do fashion, I would think that finding editors is going to be the big thing. And I don't know if there's a lot of editors that hang out on Facebook. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but it probably isn't the right way to go when it comes to getting your work seen, finding ways to advertise and so forth. So I see that as being an extremely crucial thing for any business, to define your target audience. So fortunately, we're almost the same as you in that it kind of just lined itself up. You kind of create stuff for yourself until you figure out.
Yeah. And on the same
doing.
note, it's like, I'm sure, like, we all get bombarded with emails of people trying to get us to advertise on Yelp or whatever. So it's like, are your ideal clients on Yelp?
Yeah.
Right.
Or The Knot, or
right.
Wedding Wire, or all those different places.
Right. And then, are they finding you through Google searches?
Yeah.
And would it be worth doing a Google, like, ad there, or are they finding you more organically through? So just trying to figure out where they are and focusing your energy on those places.
Yeah. One thing that we've noticed too is that based on your different price ranges where you're starting, they're typically hanging out in different places. So, like, we used to find a lot of leads organically through Google at, like, the $2,000 to $4,000 range. And then once you get to like the $5,000 to $6,000 range, it kind of drops off, and they come from other sources, and then
Right.
8 plus, and it kind of goes to, so it totally makes a difference, not only what your style is, but also your pricing and everything. So very good advice. So what's your third tip?
My third tip is, so now they've seen your work online, right? They like what they see so far. So now when they finally make that contact with you, that experience now has to be consistent with what they were expecting, right? So for example, if, like you were saying, like if it's, if you're in the high end one, they're going to expect a certain level of service.
Yeah.
So if they show up and you're meeting them at a Starbucks, this was when I found that I had to get an office. It was like I couldn't sit down at a Starbucks and say, "Oh, like please hand me $5,000 right now." It
starts to get difficult to, yeah, no, totally.
Like you just don't look credible anymore, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's important that that they're meeting with a lot of different photographers, obviously, right? Or I guess some people come to
me.
me.
A few in mind, like
right, but there are some people who are like meeting with the few, right? So if you want to stand out to them, you have to have your experience match what they were expecting.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I had a client actually not book us because I drove a crappy car once.
I'm not surprised, but I'm surprised.
It was when we were growing our studio. We were getting into that $4,000 and $5,000 range several years back. And I still had my 94 Accord. I drove that thing like into the ground because I loved that car. It was it was like my college car, it was my high school car, it was everything.
Yeah.
So I loved it, and I never wanted to get rid of it. And my partners, after a client, I met with a client and I drove. And usually I would try to hide the car, but this time I was actually meeting at their house, so they saw it parked out front. And yeah, they didn't book because they assumed that if you're able to charge $5,000, you should be able to afford a better car. And,
Right.
and it's a very natural assumption.
Right.
If you're able to charge that amount, you shouldn't be meeting at Starbucks. And
Right.
so your booking rate would obviously go down if you're doing those things, because it becomes harder to convince people.
Right.
So what you're saying makes total sense. And at that point, I bought a Prius, which I didn't really like very much. But now I like my car.
But now people will see you and they think, "Oh, this guy cares about the environment."
I know I was like, what car would pass off for anybody? Like I could be a president of a company, I could be anything, and that's a Prius. So I bought a Prius. But then do you have a Prius?
No, I don't.
Have you ever driven in a Prius?
No.
No? Okay. So the only problem that I have with a Prius is that they have, from the inside of the car, there's only one sound that they make at all points in time whenever you're accelerating. And it's just this high-pitched wee, like, because the car is like, the engine is
like
so
a
tiny.
go-kart.
Yeah, the engine's so tiny that anytime you're like accelerating, that's all you hear is just that. It'll drown out your music, it'll drown out your wife on the phone, your husband on the phone, anything. So, okay. So from the top, we had to differentiate yourself, you're recommending defining the target audience, creating a consistent look and style with the images, and also creating a consistent experience with the website and so forth. So you mentioned the studio piece. What else would you say is part of that experience that you feel like helps you to tighten up and differentiate what you offer?
Well, I think the look of your studio, when they're walking in, what they're seeing, the types of albums that you're offering should match the level of, like, I've had some people who've come through my workshops where they're still charging, let's say, $1,000, but they're trying to offer like $3,000 albums.
I see.
And there's a disconnect there.
Yeah.
So I think just the products that you offer should be on par with what with your audience. And then also on that same note, like all your social media stuff should be consistent as well. So someone who's discovering your name for the first time, when they click on like who is this person, they click on that profile, what does your bio look like or say? Instagram specifically, the thumbnails, that first I don't know the technical terms for it, but that first image they see, their screen with your little profile image and all the little thumbnails, like what are they seeing? That's going to be their first impression of you.
Yeah. And you have this all so tightly defined, it's great. But I can truly see it, actually. When I look at your website, when I look at everything that you do, you've done a really fantastic job of just tightening up the entire product, like having a great product from start to finish. So
thanks. I mean, there's definitely a lot of areas of improvement. Like my website needs to be worked on. like badly, but
We don't notice it.
but I feel like a lot of people do, like, first impressions matter a lot.
Yeah.
And, you know, if a lot of like people are finding me through Facebook or Instagram, and so there's already that first impression.
Yeah.
My website is pretty enough for now. It just is not functioning the way I want it to function.
Yeah. We all have these areas that we're not happy with. So, okay, well, I thank you for taking the time out to chat with us about this stuff, and it was amazing advice. For all of you, if you guys want to learn more about Caroline, to see her work, be sure to check out the actual link in the video. It'll take you over to the article page where we have links to Caroline's portfolio, her website, her workshops, where you do a lot of teaching. So you guys can get more information on that. And also, we have an upcoming video, which depends on how, I guess, we release the order of these. But we're going to talk in our third and final video about shooting film, because you are a big-time film shooter, and it's one of the areas that I am particularly interested to talk about. And we've had these film cameras sitting here for 2 episodes now and haven't chatted about it at all, so I'm looking forward to that one. So we'll see you all in the next video. And then I've been trying to like get out of the studio by like 6, and I'll go spend 2 hours with the kids.
That's amazing.
Go to bed. Do it again.
I sleep from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m.
Really? You do not. Oh my! Did we get that on? What the heck? That's 2 days of my sleep right there. That's 2 days of how much sleep I get. Fantastic.